Say, you all made it today. The weather's not the greatest outside, but it's doable. And I want to thank everybody so much for being here today. It's just an honor and a privilege to speak before the whole crew. So thank you all for coming today. I want to thank Tricia, and I want to thank the John Matthew Black people and all the other people that helped put this together. Part of our mission, you'll know at BHA, is to share the history of the area with all people, local and nationwide, worldwide if we can. So the history of this area is just phenomenal and goes back a long, long ways. So at the request of this great organization, I'd like to read this a little bit. I am duly grateful and exceedingly happy to be in your midst today to share the rich history of this community. In the port of Bayfield, at one time it was called a port of entry here in Bayfield, so you're in the harbor city, one of the great cities on the Great Lake, and it's been here a long time. My undertaking today, can you hear me back there okay?
Yes.
Do I need to use that or not? Okay, so, okay, everybody can hear me. Okay, so my undertaking today is to make an accurate and historical and pictorial account that will identify the numerous docks, some of the peoples, some of the boats, some businesses, and activities that happened here way before our time, way back as early as 1856 and to 1927. Over the past years, I think I've probably done 15 slideshows, and they're all related to the Apostle Islands, which I love this park, and I love this area and all the people in it. I'm dedicated to commercial fishing families, of which my family had a strong interest in the past. I've done stories on the school, the railroads, agriculture, the timberlands, that type of thing. And not once do I bring to the public's attention the magnanimity of having a waterfront loaded with docks on the shoreline of Bayfield. They go way back when. So if you'd have been around in those days, you would have seen the white-winged angels. You know what a white-winged angel is? Anybody? That would be in our day, in the old days, that would be some of the Mackinaws. They were little 26-foot skiffs. Dave, you know all about it, but they were called the white-winged angels out there. You'll see tall ships, triple mast, double mast, and they're all loaded with either fish or timber, piping, and brownstone around here. You see wood-fired coal stoves, coal-fired tugs and boats around here that are pulling the large rafts of timber from the North Shore, along our shore, into R.D. Pike's Mill in Bayfield, over to Ashland. They were all tied up on the shoreline here. Lumber haulers, they'd have their consorts. The Knock Bay was a consort, and she was on the shoreline at Stockton Island now. Basically, she would have been here overnight at least, and towed. She sank outside of our and moved into the Stockton Island area. You would see package freighters. I was asked one time, what is a package freighter? Well, lo and behold, in the old days, when you were living in Bayfield, you were landlocked until the railroad came in 1883. Landlocked. You could get out here on a horse and buggy, maybe on nice weather in the summertime, and sway in the wintertime, but basically you were landlocked, and the packet freighters would come from Sault Ste. Marie, loaded with apples, potatoes, all the staples that they need in the fall of the year to carry them through the winter, and in the summertime they would be loaded with the same type of thing, but they'd also bring along with them traveling minstrels that would, put on a show on the top decks of those big boats, that type of thing. So they were more than just, casual entries into Bayfield. They were huge, a part of the culture of Bayfield. Some of the larger boats that would be in here would have been the America was in here, and she was a Booth Fisheries boat that sank off Isle of Wight. The Christopher Columbus is here, and I'll show you a little picture of those boats. One of those boats here, and they carried staples and goods also. And obviously the commercial fishing tugs line the shoreline here. At one time, in the booklet I put out on commercial fishermen, I swear there's probably close to 150 different fishermen that that fished out of here, and they all have little boats, big boats, steamboats, Cummins diesel, fire boats, the whole works. So they were here in droves. And last but not least, there were tour boats and ferry boats, starting with the Idora and the boat that went from Avalon Island over to Bayfield down to Ashland, run by Howard Russell's father, John Russell. And then there were other ferry lines like the Detroit came into Bayfield and the Bing 2, and then there was the Michibu 1, and the Michibu 2, then the Michibu, and then the Garhow, and then the Island Queen, and so on and so forth, till you got these big ferry boats out here now. But they were here, and they utilized these docks also. And all of them had their bow lines and stern lines tied to the decks here. I could labor here I could go on, and I don't want to do that. I just want to briefly introduce you to this period of time. So I narrowed it down to about 45 slides that I want to show you, and I'll go through fairly quickly. This is often just for clarity, and I will read a transcribed script that came out of the old Bayfield papers years ago so that you would get a flavor for the people that lived here and the editors of those papers. So if you'll bear with me for those a little bit, and then I'm going to quickly get into the rest of the slideshow, and I'm going to wing ding it there. And if you guys have some questions you want to ask me, that'd be fine. So anyway, to start off, that's a photo that our family gave to BHA quite a few years ago, and that's the city dock in Bayfield, and so forth. So I started off with a little entry to what Bayfield may have looked like the year before the renting docks here at all. I thought I'd just back up just a little bit. And so in the paper, John O'Bell wrote this. He was the editor of the Bayfield County Press back when this was written. And he wrote, "One of the most interesting events in the history of this section in which Mr. Robert Warren participated occurred on the 24th day of March, 1856, when the ground was broken for the building of Bayfield. On that date, Mr. Warren, in the company with 3 others, came over from the point. They rode over from the point to watch the work teams, the large, heavy horses being quite a sight for them. The teams were driven down from Superior on the ice and landed on the sandy beach where the warehouse of the Bayfield Fruit Shippers Association now stands. That would be at the base of Manypenny. That's where they landed, right there. Over the party of 4 that came over to see the horses, 3 are still living. So this is 1912, this was written. Mr. Moore, Joe Nabu of La Pointe, and Sam Desamy of Odena. At that time, there was but one house of any standing size in Bayfield, which being the old Aesop Whittlesey home on 2nd Street. Now I could buy Miss Annie Green, okay? But anyway, I thought I have this one right here. Could that be the Whittlesey house? That's probably not where 2nd Street was. Well, this is the oldest picture of Bayfield that I've been able to lay my hands on. You can see where the waterfront's down there. The steamboats are coming in. Madeline Island's kind of like over here. There's an old fort down on the dock right there, and I think that's about the time of the Civil War, but somebody put that rendition together for us at that time. Then, and you see no docks, or maybe you see one right here, and that's where Pike had a mill down there, and that came about 1882, so this would be about 1882. There's one of his buildings on the dock, and here's his mill, first mill. Okay. Then Curry Bell was the editor of the Bayfield Press from 1882 until about 1912, somewhere there, and then he gave the press over to his son Donald Bell. And Mr. Bell wrote this in the paper, and this is relationship to the. I'll get back to that one in a minute. But anyway, that gets back to this photo of Bayfield right here. I'm all, anyway, he wrote, you'll see the docks along here. I'm gonna do this presentation starting right here at the Bond dock. I'm gonna work all the way around in 45 minutes down the coal dock. So you're just gonna see some, some bits and pieces of them. There's a lot of history in each one, obviously. But anyway, to make it clear for you right now, I'm gonna read this to him. He said this. The past growth and present status of Bayfield's harbor facilities for the handling of lumber are presented here. It is now a good many years since one could speak of going down to the dock in Bayfield. But way back in time, when the Algonquin and the Lady Elgin, craft of that ilk, plowed the waters of Lake Superior, there was probably a time when going down to the dock meant only a trip to the foot of Washington Avenue. The old Sam Bond dock, now owned by W.F. Dalrymple, and which is at the extreme end of this immense frontage, has each succeeding season received a few extra touches. One summer having been widened its entire length, 20 feet wide. This season, new piling and new planking have quite rejuvenated and still keep it in the front rank of docks used for merchandise. Bell then goes further on to say, and this is, you'll find out, this is where I'm going to start right here, but it was actually built by C.C. Childs out of the Point, and then went to Sam Bond, who is, you'll see Sam Bond's name in the Ashland streets over there, you go to Vaughan Avenue. He was here in Bayfield. He left here in Bayfield in about 1872. So, and then it was a Dalrymple dock a little bit later. But they called the Bond dock. This is 1872, and these are the dock sites. I'll start there. He says, and then Bell goes on further to inform, the long dock across that split, built by Nelson and Frank Batten, circa 1882, and is now owned by A. Booth Packing Company, has received the needed renewals of pilings and planks. This company has also built a number of smaller docks which wind in and out along the shore of the front street in a perplexing manner. Thus, one might think, well, speak of going down to the docks at the foot of Washington Avenue and feel certain that the word docks was much more than appropriate dock. The most important improvements, however, are to be found in the south of Bayfield. Captain Robinson Durling Pike, beginning years ago with his mill plant, about 1882, almost in a marsh, turned out to the bay, extending around Austrian's clearing until now his mill and yards are practically over the water. His docks truly may be said to form a system by themselves. They now extend from the foot of First Street, right about here, all the way to Holston's Field over here by the coal dock, okay? And they encompass about what Mr. Bell said, Curry Bell said, was they held about 20 blocks, okay? So you kind of have a little background about where I'm going with this. I'm going north from C.C. Childs dock to Vaughn's dock to Dalrymple dock. So right in here now is where Nelson Batten and Frank Batten have built their dock, in which the ferry boats land in that area now. There's a city dock. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about pipe stocks all along the waterfront here, and finally the coal dock. So you'll kind of have an understanding about how many docks were here in town and the importance they were to this community. Okay? We're started?
Hey Bob,
Yo.
Question. Just for clarity, where is Manypenny in the south there?
All right.
Because wasn't that all added like?
Manypenny is right. Here's Rice Avenue. Here's Washington Avenue. Fenton House. Fant is now Manypenny. This whole map was originally called Fant Avenue, and that was changed somewhere along the line to Manypenny. Okay? I don't want to confuse you, but that's the way it was. So, and they're all named for investors in Bayfield, obviously, okay? At that current time. And believe it or not, there was a Payne Avenue and a Wilson Avenue. This is, you ride on Wilson every day. Here's about where Bourdain Stock is right here, that period, this area right here. But this is Wilson Avenue, and then the next one up would have been Payne Avenue, and so on and so forth now. And it actually extended further in the old days. Okay? Uh-oh.
Need bigger buttons,
So anyway, I think you thought I was kidding you, maybe when I said C.C. Giles started this. But anyway, Judge Andrew Tate, through a private letter from the son of the deceased, is informed of the death of Higginham, Connecticut, of C.C. Giles, one of the pioneers of Bayfield. He came to Lake Superior in 1856 and built the dock now owned by William F. Dalrymple at the foot of Washington Avenue. Positive proof that he was the first dock builder in Bayfield. He resided here for about 4 or 5 years and sold to the Honorable Sam S. Vaughn. Okay? All settlers will remember him as a genial man and one who took deep interest in Bayfield. He was about 60 years of age, so wrote Curry Bell, the editor of the Bayfield County Press. Okay? Folks, just imagine, close your eyes for a second, and think about coming to Bayfield. The first boat to Bayfield in April of 1856 was the Algonquin. This particular boat was a 2-masted sailor, and it came to Bayfield and dropped people off with the first sawmills, that type of thing, and the local set of people at the dock that was built then. And that's what, they came on that boat. And a little bit later came the Lady Elgin. She was the second steamer into Bayfield that laid at the dock in early June of that year. So those are the first 2 boats that landed in Bayfield to my best knowledge, okay? You can see the Algonquin was about a 65-footer, double-masted topsail schooner, and the Lady Elgin is basically here maybe 1 or 2 trips to Bayfield. Then she's sunk off of, I think it was Winnetka, Illinois, so she's down on the bottom yet, I believe. Second boat here is the Louisa in 1883. This is the North Dock, the Vaughn Dock, in about 1883. The Louisa was a topsail schooner, and she was brought up here by the people, their names were Atwood, and John Atwood was the proprietor, and he later on sold that piece of property, that boat and company, to Booth Fisheries, who came here in 1884, in the spring of 1884. So she was in here and out of here all the time. Beautiful. And you'll notice on the hill up here, see the old graveyard? That's the Catholic Church isn't even in this photo. So this is way back when. So this was the original graveyard for the Catholic people in Bayfield, up on the top of the Catholic Hill. The North Dock, C.C. Child's Dock, the Vaughn Dock, the Dalrymple, Blue and North Dock. It had so many names you get lost in the shuffle. But anyway, I like this photo right here. This shows the Mackinaws tied to that dock right there. My dad told me that when that dock is no longer there, it's underwater by X amount of feet. But when my dad was a kid, he was from Bayfield, he grew up in Bayfield. He said, Bobby, we used to go down the end of that dock, he said, and we'd dive off the pilings on the end of it out there. So they would dive off of that out there. You'll see Bayfield in 1897, the Christopher Columbus came to Bayfield. She was originally built for the World's Fair in Chicago. And she was built to transport people from Milwaukee to Chicago, but she needed a couple trips up here, and that boat would go from Duluth to the two harbors, to Isle Royale, back to Bayfield, and then swing back again. And this is kind of an interesting one. This is I believe this is Japan. These are the type of packet boats I'm telling you came to Bayfield and landed at the North Dock. This is the Japan, this is the favorite. These are the little Mackinaws, and this is one of the most famous boats in Bayfield, the Nellie Bataan. She was owned by Frank and Nelson Bataan, and she was a tugboat amongst tugboats, premier tugboat in the area for many years. Even some of the old timers I knew in Bayfield, I said, what do you know about Frank Bataan? He said, well, I remember his boat, the Nellie Bataan. They called her the Nellie B. That was her name. Okay, take a good look, because those are wonderful, wonderful photos, and they're downstairs here at BHA. This is an important organization. So what do they do when those packet boats got here? Okay, well, Bayfield was notorious for being Bayfield. It became a tourist town before tourism was even with a capital T. And what they would do is they get off to Japan, or they get off some of the earlier packet boats, and they would stay here. They would stay here at the first Island View Hotel. It was originally named the Indian, and that would be in the parking lot where the liquor store is now, on First Street there, okay? So that was there, but they didn't like the name Indian, so they changed it to the Island View Hotel, and they moved it up across. They had a big rampway system across Washington Avenue. Here you see the North Dock. Here you see the Booth Dock, or the Nelson Bataan Dock, with the freighter tied to it, and the little boats here. But then they built, in 1882, they built the Island View Hotel. And that was a place where all the wealthy came. Who came there? People like General Sherman, Mrs. Abraham Lincoln. Those people, they came up, they were the wealthy people. They come up on those expensive packet boat rides in those days. And they came to Bayfield to see the Apostle Islands and that type of thing. So that's why they came here. It was tourism. They came for the fish dinners they had there. They came for the dancing and the fun they could have at the Island View Hotel, and which Curry Bell would write in one article, on New Year's Eve, we danced the night fandango. So they would dance all night long, go home in the morning. So, you know, anybody that's young in here, you ain't got one up on anybody, I'll tell you that. So anyway, that's what they come to stay, and there's other ones too. There's the Fountain House and a whole pile of others. Here you see the working North Dock. Not there anymore. You'll notice here, where what they do is they bring the boats into here, and they be loaded with sandstone from the islands. They take them off with derricks, and they set them on little cars here, and they take them up the street, over to here, somewhere's over here, and they load them on another set of tracks, and they would be shipped, that brownstone would be shipped all over the nation. Chicago, Detroit, Helena, Montana, a lot of those buildings have Bayfield brownstone. Even New York City's got some Bayfield brownstone in them. But that's the way that old dock looked then. Here's the Nelson Bataan dock, which we'll get to in a minute. But anyway, here's the fish barrels. They made 1 year Booth Fisheries when we're in operation. They made 10,000 of those wooden barrels right in Bayfield, in the cooperage. And those where they hauled, whitefish out of here and lake trout, and they shipped them down below, back on the packet boats, where the minstrels were probably singing as they left home, that type of thing. I love this photo. It was on the opening page, but this is what I really love about it. Here's the R.W. Curry. That was later a boat owned by Booth. Here's the S.B. Barker. And over here is the Nellie Bataan again, and the Fashion washed up on the beach with a little sailboat there. But notice, this very time, probably circa 1896. Can you hear me back there yet? Yes. All right. Circa 1896. I haven't seen too many women in this type of dress here recently. And they've always got a dog, and the people this must have been shot from an air balloon going by, because everybody's kind of going like this, you know what I mean, or looking up. But this is the dock now. This is where the ferry boat docks right now. On the inside here, And this is their shed, but this was a fish shed owned by Booth many years ago. One of the interesting things about here too is you see this is the ticket booth for the old Bayfield Transfer Railway, which ran right by here. So we know that this is right around 1898, 1900, because that's when they started going north into Red Cliff and into the township of Bayfield, and they harvested all the timber way out in the woods, way back up in that area. So, but there you see, but this is the old ticket office right here. It's still there. The ferry line owns it. This is the Frank Batan's store that was there, and he sold everything from pickled fish and pickles and, you know, coveralls and you know, that type of wear that you need in a lake. So old Frank Batan owned that store. You'll see this beautiful view of the island view. You can see it was quite a wonderful, magnificent building. There's and that was taken down in about 1916. And I tell a little story about my dad was a baby then, but his sister Rhino, they lived right up over in here at that point in time, a little house up in here. And my Aunt Rhino, my grandfather, originally only drank wine at Christmas, but he'd send her over there every once in a while with a bucket. And she said, "Paul would make me come home with a bucket of beer." So I know he was kind of BSing a little bit when he said he only drank wine at Christmas, because I think he liked a little beer too. Okay? And you notice the people and the dock. And that dock is over there now. A Booth Packing Company. Huge operation. I like this photo. This is given a photo that was sent over to me by James Akensberger. And it's a mural that he has that Robert Fulton painted. Where it's kind of, and I couldn't do a real good job of bringing it in very crisp and clear, but I'll kind of give you an idea. Here's the Curry again. Here's the Nellie B, or either that or that's the TH Camp right there. And that's the TH Camp, and she sunk between Wilson Island and Madeline Island in 120 feet of water. She's still in the bottom. Dave, you know about her. So that is before 1900, because that's when she sunk. So you can see how the docks were built in those days. You'll notice right here where the Bayfield Memorial Park is. That used to be the Opera House in Bayfield, and it was in 1924 that burned down. And my Aunt Martha was a Girl Scout then in Bayfield, and she said, "I was scared to go home that day." I said, "Why is that, Martha?" She said, "I had a brand new pair of boots." I said, "What?" She said, "I didn't want to tell Pa that they burned in the fire down there." So that building burned to the ground, and then fortunately, the Bayfield Civic League has taken that property and made it into a very attractive and nice park for everybody that cares to enjoy, you know, a little nice view of the waterfront, that type of thing. The Bayfield Pavilion wasn't, or the pavilion that you see over there, that wasn't even there then. So, and this is before the dock was built in 1909, the city dock. Okay? Right here you'll see the ice chute. Well, they used to, out in this area right here, they used to harvest ice every year, that type of thing. And this would be right where the ferry boat landing is. All this stuff is gone. Those are the original old buildings that are now show you the parking lot of that area. Capiche? Any questions?
Over here.
Oh, hi, yes, ma'am.
Did those buildings burn down?
Some of them burned down, and some of them were torn down by hand to make room for new buildings that were going to be in place from a little bit later in time in the 1930s. Okay. So you wonder, I always throw this photo in. That takes me back. Nope, this building right here. Okay? These guys right here are sitting in the top floor of that building. And this is an Emmanuel Louis photo from about 1905. And in the back here is my grandfather, John Nelson. So he was a commercial fisherman, and he fished out of Bear Island, he fished out of Julian's Bay at Stockton Island, and in 1947, he moved the whole rig over to Rocky Island. Okay? But anyway, here's a nice photo. I believe this is Louis Moe right here. This is Louis Moe right here. And the rest of these guys, they were all longshoremen, or they ran the tugboats that Booth used to fish all year round with. Like the Kent, and like and all the other boats. They had the Helen was another one. They have numerous boats out here. That type of thing. There's a picture of Booth Fisheries. I'm guessing this is pre-1916, because guess what? Island View is still here. Here's, you'll see in 1879, Father Chettle moved the mission from La Pointe over to Bayfield. And here's the old graveyard for the people that were of the Catholic faith. They all moved, that was all moved when Isaac Wing gave 15 acres of land to the Catholic people, and he gave 20 acres of land where the big marble orchard is up there now. And they were all moved at that period of time up to the Catholic cemetery in Bayfield from there, and now those are vacant lots. And I think Mr. Bland has a place just up there a little bit, in this area right here. Okay? This is this home is still there, and a lot of them are gone. Booth Fisheries. This is probably 1900. Here you see the Bayfield transfer going by. Okay, this is the way it looked years ago. If you're there right now, the beach is right out to here. It all filled in over these years. This is the old cooperage right here. This is another ice shed they had. Here's that long dock I was telling you about. That's the old bond dock. This was owned, built by Dormer, the Bataan Dormer Fish Company. Later on, Booth picked it up in an acquisition. So you'll see the boatyard over here, and the long dock right there right now used to be where Booth had their operations. Again, this is the north dock where my dad used to swim off the end of that as a kid. He was like 10 years old. Anyone here 10 years old? We got one. Raise your hand, please. Good to have you here. Okay, so anyway, that's Bayfield. Well, my understanding of where this filling came over the years, right now, my dad said when he was a kid, they used to, at the Booth dock, when he was a kid, this is all gone, pretty much gone when he was a kid, but when he was a kid, they used to be able to pull a Turner, a CW Turner, right up to about there, and they'd unload herring in the fall of the year. But that all filled in with the floods from 1950 and on, and what would happen is the floods would come down the big sluiceway there, and all that sand, it's all sand up in that Orchard Hill, that would all wash down to the waterfront. And if you go down to the waterfront there and look at the little bitty rocks in the water, okay, all those rocks are still there, but the sand would sit on top of them. And then the northeasters would come, and it would blow extremely hard, and it would blow the sand right up, gradually up to here, to here, to here. I think we're probably right out in here now. That type of thing out in here now. And so over the years, it just accumulated. So now you got the fanciest sand beach. Set aside those in Hawaii, and that type of thing. Okay? Any questions about that? This is cool. That locomotive right there, that's the Bayfield transfer that went along the shoreline all the way to Roy's Point, where they had a mill. They had a big mill there. William Knight had a mill there, and then from there it went up the hill and into Redcliffe. Redcliffe had a huge sawmill there, and then that railroad went all the way up to the town of Russell. And I'll give you one of the answers to the test today. It wound up at Racket Creek out there. Okay, so that's on the test. I know you guys.
That building still standing?
on it. What you see is a ferry boat, it's gone through the years. There is a nice photo of it there. Right here is the old convent that used to be in Bayfield, where the Catholic nuns lived there, and it was also a hospital at one time in the 1870s. So you can see right here, there's another bar called the Bucket of Blood was there, so this is after the Bucket of Blood burned down, and that type of thing. So, and these are gone. This is where Millie LaPointe house is. This is where I grew up in that building. So this is a little bit later, probably 1930, somewhere in that period of time. You see the ramps here where they get the ice out of the lake out in here, type of thing. And it had a boatyard. I threw this one into the boatyard in 1934. I figured you'd get a kick out of it. This is the North Dock again. Right here, that's where my dad dove off those pilings out there. And this is the Booth Fisheries Dock, ferry boat dock right now. But here, they used to pull these boats up on the shoreline, and this is my grandfather's boat called the Twin. So they're just putting them in the water. This is the Millie Bee right here, and that's a picture of them. And they just shoved her in the lake. They pull her in with horses. That type. They put a shiv on them and then pull them backwards that way. They didn't have bulldozers, they didn't have a travel lift or anything like that. But the Twin was about 30 feet long, and my grandfather would fish in her east of Michigan Island. Everybody know where Michigan Island is? East of there. He'd leave Stockton Island at Julian Bay, named for my dad, in an 8-mile-an-hour boat. That's how far they went, and they went 2 hours, so they were 16 miles outside of Michigan Island in the deep water there, 80, 90 fathoms of water, fishing Siskoet and lake trout from there and in. Siskoet is a fat trout, the Mackinaw is the lean trout, which you get in the restaurants nowadays, but they fish. That's when men were men, the boats were wood and the men were steel. Now it's a little bit different. The boys nowadays are tough boys too, though, I'll tell you that. They earn every dollar that they make out there.
Who built the Twin?
That was built by my grandfather, Frank Mulkey, and John Nelson. They built her, I'm thinking of the Suzanne. The Twin was built by a guy on Madeline Island for my grandfather.
Christensen?
Huh?
Christensen?
No, that's not Adam's boat, no. But that was built over in Madeline Island. My grandfather was in on that. His first boat was named the Store Boat, which he named for his hometown in Norway. And then he had the Twin. And then he had the Best Suzanne built in 35. So I know this is probably 1934, 33, somewhere in there. Right here is the storage shed for the Bayfield Madeline Island ferry line. What you can see, here's the Abe and Son building back there. Here's the Marie. The Marie is now at Brenda's there, but that's when she had a fantail on her. And now the Marie that's up on Brenda's drop, Brenda Erickson Orchards up there in the strawberries. That's the old Marie, and that's Eber Bedeen right there. He's talking to some bigwig from Booth Fisheries. So Eber's right here. This is a boat that my dad and my aunts, all the kids in our family, they're all gone now. They're all born, the latest was 1918. Well, that's the C.W. Turner, named for Charlie Turner, who was one of the fish managers at Booth Fisheries for quite a few years. C.W. Turner, Charlie Turner. Here's the house where all the commercial fishermen would take their fish into there. This is the ice house back here. And this is the herring shed, where in the fall of the year they pull their nets out of here and into there and they pick herring, that type of thing in there, and then they soften the process and send them down in one of those 10,000 barrels, that were made in the cooperage over one period of time. Any questions?
Where does salt come from?
Probably out east. They used to ship a lot of stuff from Tonawanda, New York, and it would come out of Detroit, and it would come out from any of those larger towns, but they ship them up on those packet boats, and then they, barrels of it, and, bags of it, and that type of thing. So that's where that came from. I'm pretty sure anyway. Unless there's any salt mines around here that I'm not aware of. Okay? There's the boatyard. That would be in Washington Avenue right now. These are, this is my grandfather's boat right here, the Twin. So they used to pull them up between Washington Avenue, the Bond Dock, the North Dock, and the Booth Dock. And they pull them up on the beach there, and that's where all the boats are pulled for the wintertime. You'll notice they're all wood, and they're all probably 20, 30 feet long, 30 feet long at the most. I believe that right there is an LED, and this is the Twin. You can always tell the Twin because she had canvas roofs on them. They didn't have hard roofs on them. They put a front on them in the fall of the year when they fish herring a little bit. And, you know, they'd have these pieces right here. They slip up into that spot, and then they make a, you know, somewhat of a little safe fall door out of them. Another little overview of Alfred Booth and Sons operations. I wanted to give you an idea of what they did for ice. This is long gone now. This is the shed where, in the 1960s, that's where they were pulling the ice up there. In the old days, they had horse teams that would pull that trolley up, and then they had 3 or 4 or 5, 6 guys in there loading the ice onto the decks, and they laid on a layer of sawdust, and they layered that, and they put another layer of sawdust on top of that, and they would fill that building up, right up to there, right up indoors, and that ice would last them all summer long. They just have to pull it out of the shed, slide it down inside. They had a big churning machine that ground it up, little big chunks like that, and they would take that on the lake, and they just had to wash it off first to get the sawdust off, and then it went that way. Okay? Wait a minute. Anybody recognize that dude right there? He's in the audience, so he'll sign autographs later today if you want. That's Greg Kenny and Billy Batan and Bob Hoganson and Bobby Rabideau in that photo right there, and they're cutting ice down in front of you. You probably remember that, Dave, Greg. And there's a pile driver back that they used to set upon that 6-foot.
I'm the hard-working guy in that photo.
Yeah.
Standing still.
He's the finger there, man. Plotting the next thing. Anyway, I have some very good friends, the Walstead family. Justin Walstead, grandfather, was manager of Booth Fisheries from the time of 1912 until 1958 when Booth left Bayfield. So they sold out, and they sold this piece of property to the Bedeen family right in that period of time. But this is what Booth looked like then. This is from the shoreline. You see it starting to fill in now? Probably 1955, 60 on there. Here's the remnant of the old North Dock. Okay, Washington Avenue. At one point in time, Booth brought in these Quonset huts. They tore down all the old buildings, probably burned them up there, and they brought those Quonset huts in there. And that was part of their operation. I remember going in them as a kid. They had big piles of net boxes back in here, and fish boxes back in here, and the boats would tie up in those particular spots. Here you see the William G. This is a nice photo of that dock looking out towards Bass Island here. This is the Mono brothers, this is the Egerson, and I believe this is the Nancy Lee there. And this is the Egerson right here with a picture of the Quonset huts. So it's quite a different scene down there than it is today. Okay? So that, all that changed approximately in was it, Billy, when did you guys buy Bedine's down there?
1960s.
Yeah, so this is, I believe this is about that period of time. I can't give an exact date. So, but anyway, Bedine Fishery bought it. And now, of course, you know it as the Madeline Island Ferry Line. So anyway, that's one of my favorite shots. I got that from Jim Edwards. This is herring season. That's what Booth looked like when I was in high school. You remember that, Greg, when it looked like that. And all the little cabins up on the hill. This is where I grew up, right here. That house, and there's the Bonham brothers right there, and Wilson behind. Jim Everett's fished that out of a dumpster, that slide. I took it, I said, give me that slide. And thanks to Jim Edwards, I'm able to show it to you here today. Okay, I want to move down now, and I'm going to go to a quick review of the city dock. This is right after 1909, when the city of Bayfield decided, okay, we got all these industrial docks, now the people in the city want a place where you could tie a boat, that type of thing. And so they got together and they built the city dock in 1909. City dock, why not? There you'll see, this is the, right over here. Remember I told you the Opera House? This is the dock here, and that's the pilings that they used to build that long dock, or the timbers they used to build the old dock that juts out to the lake, I don't know, 300 feet or whatever it is. So, really interesting photo. This is a postcard of it, and you'll see the city dock in Bayfield as it was built in those days, and people hanging out, going out there.
In that previous photo, that building on the right side of the photo, was that Neil Schultz's?
I believe this is the one that Culver Wright moved over in about 1922. And he moved it over to where Neil Schultz owned it at the end. So Culver Wright put it on rollers, and they moved it over to the south end of Broad Street there, and Penny. So that got moved. This burned down 1924. This is probably, I'm pretty sure that could be the old Bayfield Inn years ago. Good question, thank you. Okay, here we go. Entrance to the Apostle Islands. You thought this is a time when, it was very, very popular. Tourism was huge in those days. It was not only huge now, which it really is, but it was really, really huge back in those days. And they came to Bayfield. This is the entrance. They wanted you to go over and see Avenel, the old Mission Cottage and Hotel, that type of thing. Here you'll notice the pavilion. Right now it's on the wrong side of the dock, right? Well, somewhere along the line, and Marilyn Van Santen knows the story better than I do, but they moved it right across to where it sits now. So it originally sat there. You'll notice that the railroad tracks are going right by here again. So that tells you it's between 1900 and 1927, somewhere in that period of time. So the packet boat is down there. This is probably the fashion, and some tourist boats. There's probably 8 tourist boats that came from the Point or somewhere in there. Isn't that fun? View of the docks of Bayfield, Wisconsin, 1925. I was close. Aha! Look at those wonderful, wonderful ladies sitting on the dock waiting for a boat to go for a ride on. How about that? It said Bayfield. Talk about a time period photo. Well, in the background here, you'll notice right along there is where the old Bayfield transfer ran all the way to Royce Point up in there. On the waterfront. They built that waterfront up, and they went right across that way. So I thought I'd throw that in and say, do the kids like this dress nowadays? You guys dress like that nowadays? Isn't that fun? Would you dress like that if your mom and dad bought you dressed like that?
Yes.
No. Okay, another little shot of it. Right here is Booth Fishery, kind of like in its old days. Right here is in 1911, 1913, Henry Johnson Sr. had that building in there, and that's still there, and that's where Keeper of the Lake is in that particular area. And the building next door, we used to swim underneath there, because that was the boat place. We used to swim from there over to underneath there, and then we'd get up on the dock here and go past the Bayfield Pavilion. That was built, I think, in 27. Okay? I'm moving more to the south now. So we got the dock built in Bayfield, but times were tough. In 1930, from 1929 to 1940, a great time, the Great Depression, you know, a lot of people were out of work. Franklin Roosevelt was the president, Franklin D. Roosevelt was president, and he said, you know, there's a whole pile of people out in Bayfield that are hungry, they don't have any money, they got some projects they want done out there, so they went with the Works Progress Administration, and they funded the building of the East Dock out there, okay? So all the guys in Bayfield had jobs, and probably 30 people working on that set of cribs that became the East Dock at that point in time. There you see the old Allwoods Cannery, you know, and the Bayfield Inn right here, the old inn before it burned, that type of thing. Here's the old roundhouse for the railroad station. This is probably Greg Kinney right there. So anyway, you know, you see the progress of the dock building in Bayfield. You'll see the boats that lined up as a result of that. That's the Peshtigo, where they're loading lumber on that dock. That dock was huge. You'll see how the big boat she was. They would load lumber on there by hand. By hand. Guys had forearms on them like that. Old Lloyd Wickstein, I asked him one time, I said, Lloyd, where'd you get them big arms? He said, that's from loading lumber. So by hand, he had forearms on him, sort of like that. You know, just from throwing them plank on there. That's when people really worked hard. You'll notice in the background, people said, well, what the heck is that about? Right on in front of Kenny Dotson's Marina, they drove piling in the water. I asked my dad about that. He said, what? I said, Dad, what the heck is that for? He said, that's when they come in with the rafts of timber from around the area or the North Shore. And if the lumber mill where the boat landing area is now was full of logs, they just tied those rafts up and they let them float out there until they brought them in to be processed in the mill. So they had 10,000 cords of wood, you know, tied up to that particular hitch. There's a picture of the Ireland in Bayfield. She's loading, you know. I mean, this is the East Dock, there's Bass Island, Madeline Island. This is the Ireland, loading plank and probably those are railroad ties, ready to ship out of here. So that's right around 1906, summers in there. Big boats, huge boats. Bayfield, as you look, this is 1911 in Bayfield. Some of the interesting points here are, well, the mill would have been over here. What do you see? This is the Jacob Johnson Solly Bataan dock. You'll see the piles of lumber here. This is the trestle that went around all the way that the Bayfield transfer went on. She would meet the Omaha right here. They would pick up passengers from the Omaha, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Omaha Railway would land here. This is the person's last chance hotel, that type of thing. And then the transfer, people would transfer here and head over this way and get on the Bayfield transfer and go all the way here, all the way to Roy's Point to wherever they wound up in the town of Russell. So it was a different world altogether. Can you believe it? This is the trolley system that they used from the mill. They had a trolley system that load the planks on the end of the dock so they didn't have to haul them down in a wagon, that type of thing. And they had cars sitting up there. That would be the Coast Guard slip now. Bataan Fisheries is there. Woodine Fisheries is over in here. Here's some of the old trolley systems that they used. These are the planks ready to go. This is before 1900 because the camp is still floating. So I know this photo is pre-1900. I don't know exactly what year, but like I say, I think she sunk off of Wilson Island in 1900. There's a system of, there you see it again. That's the waterfront. There's City Hall. There's the tramway that went all the way around and all the way over there. There's the original schoolhouse in Bayfield. That was built in 1870 when my dad was a kid. That's gone. That's where the fire hall is there, where the ambulance hall is now. So that was there then, but that was originally built as a school in 1870. That's it right there. This is the Catholic hillside. This is the Iron Bridge. So that's the first school, which later became the City Hall for many years. And then they tore that down. City Hall's right there right now. Another shot of the waterfront there. You see, keep note of that stack right there. This is that waterfront in that period of time. Probably taken right around in front of Medine Fisheries, that area. There's a really nice shot of the panorama. See the amount of timber that came out of here? Lumber? Unbelievable. Millions and millions and millions of board feet of white pine that built cities like Detroit and Chicago, Tonawanda, and anywhere along the Great Lakes. This wood was shipped out of here via tugs. And here's a trolley coming from which they load that lumber out there, and then they load it on those boats, and then off they go. But isn't that a wonderful shot of Bayfield right there? That's probably Peshtigo right over there. This is taken right around 1906. That's when Henry Wassman took over the mill from R.D. Pike in Bayfield. R.D. Pike had the first mill here. It was called the Willow Daisy, and then Pike died in March of 1906, and then Henry Wassman, who was a worker for him, bought the mill and took over that end of operations, and they owned a sawmill there, and they sawed it all, and they sold rough lumber and shingles and everything else there. All good things have a problem. So in 1908, and this is September 5th, 1908. Remember I showed you this guy right here? They call that an Excelsior plant. And what they did in that was they burned sawdust if they weren't using it in the ice houses, that type of thing. So anyway, on that particular day, it was a hot day in September, west winds were blowing a gale, and they lit a fire in that Excelsior plant, and one of the sparks took off. Okay? It wiped out the whole waterfront. But without getting into it big time, there were major lawsuits from the Edwards family, Sally Patan, people that had interest in the dock down there, and people that owned that lumber that was bought. So Mr. Wassman found himself, pickled, because it came from his mill and it burned that whole waterfront down. This is, again, what is this now, girls? That's a railroad track that went around Bayfield on the water. Can you believe that? No. I'm moving now a little bit down 3rd Street. This is the way it looked in the 40s. You'll see right here the railroad ran right by there, and those buildings right there were involved in the railroad. And these are the boats. This is where the boat landing is now. Kenny Dawson's got a cover up there. This is the old dock that was there. So you'll see the boats right there tied up, and there are different varieties of boats there. There's Bayfield, 1928, right. This is 1938. This is before 1938, because you see Howard Elmore came to Bayfield. This is Medine Fisheries now. Howard Elmore came to Bayfield in 1927 or 28, and he took a ride on the islands and saw all the whitefish that were being caught in the pond nets. And he said, I can make some money there. So he built the Walker plant and stuff where probably one of the really, really good operations Bayfield still is, where Medine Fisheries is there now. That's the original plant. So I'm figuring this is between 1928 and 1938. And the reason I know this is 1938 is because you'll see here, that's a conservation building, which is at the end by the Coast Guard slip, that orange and green building. That was built in 1938 by Works Progress Group, okay? So here you'll see the Lola, the Josephine Addison, And, you know, all the boats, this is Hadman Fish Company right here. This is where Irv Hadman had a big, big fish company. And they were huge, you know, employers in the city of Bayfield. And all that came to an end in 1949, on October 10th, 1949, where my dad said it was the biggest blow Bayfield ever had. And it wiped out Irv Hadman's, you know, fish docks down there. So that's where Kenny Dobson now has the, you know, the fun little point chateau there, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, this got wiped out. Everything wiped out. So this is the blow. My dad said he was at Stockton Island. He was at Rocky Island. They were letting gill nets out there in one of our sheds, and my dad's boat was a mermaid. And it was 42 feet long and weighed probably 30 tons. And he had the boat on anchor. And he said, Bob, he said, and that wind blew. Me and Tommy Thompson, I was a hired guy that worked with him, we were in a shed letting nets. And he said, when I come out of World War II, he was in the Marine Corps, he come back and he bought Skagit, and he bought new chains for the place over there at Rocky. And they were 1/2 inch and 7/16 inch cold rolled steel chains. And he said we had them set northeast and southwest. And he said when the mermaid was up, she was pulling on them chains in that boat at an angle like that. And I said, how come the chains never broke? He said that the trick, he said, was we had cold rolled steel from World War II. And that wasn't that hard stuff, but it was stuff that would pull. And so you could never break a link, but you'd stretch a link. And that held that boat during that horrible storm. They came back to Bayfield, and they saw that Irv Hadman's, and they did a lot of business with Irv Hadman too. Really, really, really good people. Salted here. Their photo is up over there. You see Irv on that wall right there? I believe that's the Hadman family. Expect that when you leave. And then we get down to the Artie Pike Mill. Just millions and millions of board feet come out of there. This is a little daisy plant down there then. That was there from about 1882 to 1906, that type of thing. You can see the mill slip. The hack noise sits right there right now. Okay? That's what it looked like when we first came here. That's one of the first docks in Bayfield that Pike built. And you'll see, this is probably his boat, the Maple Leaf right here. And he's loading her down there at that point in time. And that's right down there where the mill slip is right here. And now it goes out over here like that, but that's where his mill was, and that's the original mill. There's kind of the way it looked in 1960 when we were kidding around there. This is where it happens to be over here. Here's Kenny's boathouse here. You'll notice right here, Kenny's dock is really not a dock, but it's a sunken barge that was owned by Zenith Dredge Company. So all that's under the water, and they built on top of it. The Scout Bob Cook is the name of it. This is where Hadman Fish Company sat. This is Hulver Wright's place here. This is his slip in there, that type of thing. And this is July 1960, type of thing. There you see a little panorama of the Bayfield proper right around the turn of the century. The mills, lumber in there, that type of thing. And then at one time, there was a coal dock there, and it went way, way along the water. And that's what, somebody here asked me, what about that dock in the south? Who asked me that? Yeah, well that dock was a coal dock, and at that point in time, the power plant in Bayfield and all the homes burned coal, and all the coal boats would come in and tie up there. And this railroad track ran along Kenny Dobson's. You see the logs here in the mill pond. So all the way along the waterfront on the beach and out to there. And they would load them little carts up, come back in the Bayfield this way, and into the roundhouse, and then John Q. Public would go on by, their coal there, or they'd have it delivered, that type of thing. But this is the old railroad track. That dock is underwater, and right about here is where the Robert Emmett is on the bottom. And my Uncle Norman told me one time, he said when we were kids, we used to go down off that beach there. He said we'd go swimming out in the water. There was a boat on the bottom, and that was the Robert Emmett. Well, the Robert Emmett was one of the tugboats that towed all the logs around here, but they scuttled her, and they took all the machinery off the Robert Emmett and put it into Shine Miller's and Billy Duquette's and Henry Watson's new boat, the tug Bayfield. So the tug Bayfield had all the old remnants of the old Robert Emmett, but I wouldn't doubt if she's still down here somewhere. Anyway, that's your tour. I want to give a credit. I hope you enjoyed it. There's so much more I could go on and on about each side, but I just can't run out of it.